Good morning, it's Monday.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, we're now under recording. Okay, good morning, it's Monday, June 22nd, 2020, 9 a.m. This is the Muscatine County Board of Supervisors. I'd like to call the meeting to order. First item on the agenda is to review the agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Santos, a second by Nathan. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same? Motion carries. Item number 3 are items with Mike Nolan. Mike, are you on the phone this morning?
I'm up now. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep, hear you, Mike. Okay, so item number 3 is items with Mike Nolan of Horizon Architecture. First item is discussion and possible action to approve change order request number 14, an additional ADA ramp and railing painting in the amount of $3,218.04 for the Muscatine County Maintenance Facility Project. Mike, did you want to talk a little bit about that?
This change was, initially, we did a change order for the ramp and the railing, to have the ramp along Walnut Street. When we had the final, installation of the sidewalk just to meet the grade, we needed an extra 6 feet of ramping down. So this is gonna cover the 6 feet, extra 6 feet for that. I discussed with the city if we could possibly go that, it's gonna be close to grade. We're doing that. Also looking at the building code, anywhere we have a slope ramp, we have to have the railing on both sides. So this would add the additional ramp and the painting for that, the additional railing and the painting for the ramp. The ramp itself was added at no additional charge, since it was grade on the concrete.
So Mike, this was something that was known from the code, that it was a requirement?
That's correct. This is a code requirement to have the railing on the ADA ramp. Yep.
Why would it not have been in the original bid? I mean, I'm guessing
So in the original contract, we had the ramp located. This is actually in addition to a change order that was previously submitted.
I see.
The railings were not shown on the original drawing, so this is a miss on our part.
Okay.
So essentially, this is just to add additional railing to what we've already added on to the project, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Okay, are there other questions? Then I'd accept a motion.
I move to approve.
I have a motion by Scott,
Second it.
second by Santos. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same? Motion carries. Item B is discussion of possible action to approve change order request number 16, over excavation and backfill extras in the amount of $33,517.01 for the Muscatine County Maintenance Facility Project. Mike?
Okay, if you recall, when we initiated the project, one of the unknowns in the project was the site condition. So we opted to bid with a unit cost for additional excavation and backfill for basically unsuitable soil that we discovered on site. Early on, when we started excavation, we found some areas that were not going to be suitable. So we issued basically directive to over excavate an additional 18 to 24 inches underneath all of the foundation walls and then underneath the column pads. Additionally, we found some areas underneath the slab that were unsuitable, so that required some over excavation. And recently, when we were finishing the parking, that also required a little bit of over excavation and backfill. The Swanson had submitted $70 per cubic yard rather for backfill. So I went back and did a quick back and napkin sketch to see what we should have had with the over excavation in the different areas, and this comes pretty close. So the one we agreed on early on was since there would be, unfortunately, when you're digging a trench, you can't dig a perfectly square 18 inch by 2 foot trench. So there was going to be some, fencing and over excavation. So the backup you'll find with this is that Swanson provided the rock tickets for the additional excavation, and that's what we based this off of. So looking at that, I agree that we're close enough to honor the original unit cost. The recommendation is to approve this order, basically a reconciliation of the unit cost for over excavation.
Okay.
Mike, so how many tons of actual road rock did we put through? I think it's 1 inch that they put in. Can you tell me how much you saw
I
out?
can certainly provide the backup on the rock ticket. If you want me to take a look, I can figure that out.
I mean, that's what they put in
It was-
to backfill, correct?
Here. They were on the change order request. We have, there's all your tickets.
So those, I was just wanting to get like, is this,
Some.
because each one is a 15 tons,
Yeah.
correct? So basically, if you look at all of these truck tickets, that's what we put in for the footings and foundations of easily 100 tons. That's what I want to verify when you look at each truck.
If you don't mind, I can forward that after the meeting. I can get you all the rock tickets with the backup of what the request is for this.
Mike, they have all the rock tickets.
I was just wanting to verify, that was basically what was put in underneath the footings and underneath the slabs to fill that in, correct?
That's correct. So the rock tickets you have should just be the additional. So it is not the rock tickets for the entire building. It's just for what they put in.
It was just for the extras.
I didn't look at those directly. I went and did my own calculation to see if I just was looking at the excavation areas that were reported and then the additional, just to make sure that we were on the same page as far as what the unit cost would be reasonably. So.
How many pages is there? A bunch.
Yeah, so I mean, that's what, I just wanted to verify to make sure, if you could help us understand really how many extras we had and then what was overall in the total of how much rock we brought in, because obviously they did put in quite a bit of fill, which in my perspective would be that's gonna just, you know, make the base stronger and the footing stronger for the building overall. I'd like to know the totals on the extras and the total used on the project.
Oh, just want to put the totals, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you'd like to know the total amount of rock that was in the project and the total amount that was extra, if I
Yep,
understand that correctly?
yeah, that way we can verify what that is, and with that request, I'll make the motion to approve.
I'll second.
So I have a motion by Santos and a second by Nathan, just asking for further information, Santos? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, all in favor? Signify by saying aye. All those opposed? So motion carries. Okay, next one is discussion possible action to change order request number 18, structural steel special inspections in the amount of $1,191.38 for the maintenance facility project. You got that, Mike?
Okay, yep, so we'll discuss this, and this will be a good lead-in to the next change order. So the request, essentially in the pre-bid walkthrough and then also in the project manual, we stated that the inspections would be part of the general contract. So different people will do this different ways. Some people will have the owners will do all the inspections and pay for those directly. For this, just for the ease of their coordination, everything else on site, we had that stipulated. This is on the bid form, and it's also in the quality requirements or quality control requirements section. Reading through, when we had the initial conversation, Swanson was surprised. I think this wasn't how they were accustomed to doing it. We pointed out that that's how we had the specification written. In the quality inspections, it does say that anything that's not specifically reserved by the owner will be paid by the general contractor. This, in the steel specification section, did say the owner would pay for the steel inspection, so I agreed that that was fair since it was in accordance with the overall project manual. We did say in our specification that the owner would pay for the steel inspection. So this is a steel inspection. Essentially, the city has a couple of requirements of things that they will do, and then the other things that they need special inspection on. So with this, we'll discuss this one and we'll go to the next one. But in the interest of fairness overall with the project, since we had the specification that if we had a place that said we would pay for it, that this was one that we would pick up. So I will recommend that we do pay this one for change order number 18.
Mike, when you say inspections on the steel, is this inspections of the overall material or inspections of the welds, inspections of the, it's made, you know, MTR, material testing? What are you testing when you say the inspections?
So in the special inspections, this is going to be, it's going to be looking at the welds and then the overall fabrication. Since this is a bolt together, my guess is that Terracon was on site, looked at the material itself, took a look at the welds, and then probably put a torque wrench on the bolts with most likely the level of inspection. I can dig out the specific code references and let you know what exactly is required for the structural steel special inspections.
I mean,
I think by reading, when I read the Terracon report, that's what they did. They had a tech down. And I remember the weld inspections for sure. And I don't recall what they said about the bolt, the torque specifications. I believe it was torque and weld is what they were doing.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's correct. I think that's in the backup here, looking at the description of what they said they did on that, so.
I'll move to approve.
So a motion by Santos,
I'll second.
second by Scott. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same? Motion carries. Okay, item number D is discussion and possible action to approve change order request number 19, solid compaction testing in the amount of $16,962.95 for the maintenance facility. Mike, did you want to discuss that?
Yep, so basically to the same issue again, is that in the bid form, we had them find that they acknowledged all tests would be part of their scope of work. And then again, in the quality control section, if anything was not specifically reserved by the client was the responsibility of the general contractor. We did not specifically reserve soil compaction testing, so this should have been the responsibility of the general contractor. We had this discussion early on, so I was a little surprised to see this change order come through. I did pass along to Steve Swanson that I was not going to recommend this for approval. I feel like this is something that we have pretty clearly outlined both in the pre-bid walkthrough and in the specification that this was inspection that was going to be part of the general contractor's package. So I do not recommend that you approve this change order.
Is Steve with us?
I don't, is Steve from Swanson is not on the line, or to our knowledge, do you know, Bill, you don't?
I've unmuted 3 callers that are just callers.
Okay.
So Mike, this is basically what you're saying, it's the compaction testing, and it's actually checking what, the concrete slump, or is that what you said?
Compaction.
Or just the
The
compaction?
actual inspection is, this would be a sub-grade compaction. So before they go through and pour concrete, they have to verify what we specified was a minimum of 1,500 pounds per square foot compaction. And that's what we got back into, the additional over excavation and fill to get to that level. So essentially what they'll do is they do put the fill in, it gets compacted and tamped, and then Terracon or another agency will come and verify that it actually meets the 1,500 pounds per square foot before it's, the concrete is poured. So this isn't the actual concrete testing. That was actually not, that was performed, but that's not being asked for compensation.
And this is-
We didn't get a change order on that. This is just for the compaction. Again, this was not something that we had reserved that we would take care of this. So this is the general contractor's responsibility.
Yeah, and I think this, what I heard and, in my understanding is this was covered in the pre-bid walkthrough, was made clear that this testing was the responsibility of the contractor. It was in our contract documents, specified in the contract documents. And that's why you're making the recommendation we not approve this. That's correct, Mike?
That's correct. I think it's a question of, in Swanson's mind, it's more customary for the client to pay for this type of testing, but customary and what's specified are two different things.
Okay. So what's the desire of the board?
I move to deny it.
So do we have a negative motion? Is that what do we want to
Move
make?
to reject.
Or do we just,
I think we should have action on it.
Yeah, I think you should actually take action to.
so you'd move that we deny the request for change order number 19, that would be Santos.
I'll second.
And who's second? Doug, or- Nathan has a second on that?
Mike, was this billing from Terracons?
Yes.
This comes from Swanson, they have paid Terracon directly for this work. That's
Okay,
what
but-
we'd be doing. Terracon did
So Terracon actually did the compaction testing though? Okay,
correct. All the testing was done. Yep.
okay.
Okay. So I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carries, and the motion was to deny the change order request. Okay. Item number
I'll
E.
pass that along.
Okay, thank
He
you.
offered to see if you wanted to speak on his behalf, that he could certainly do that, and I did indicate that I was gonna recommend that you do not approve this, so I'll pass that on. Thank you.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is item number E, which is action to set a public hearing for Monday, June 29th, 2020 at 9 AM on the plan specifications, estimate of cost, and proposed form of contract for the Muscatine County Jail partial roof replacement project. Are there any comments,
So moved.
questions? Okay, I have a motion by Nathan
Second.
and a second by Scott. Any comments? This would be a public hearing. Mike, this is for the roof replacement on what we'll call the older jail, the 95 jail, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. No further comments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carries.
Leslie, what's the minimum lead time on those public hearing notices? Or Nancy?
4 and 20, so we will get it
We're all
published
good, all right, great.
in time to meet that requirement. And I will have copies of everything available in my office if anybody wants to review it by Thursday morning.
Okay.
Thanks, man.
Mike, what else do you have for us this morning?
So a quick update, we are underway, so excavation started over at the deputy quarters addition. Appreciate Keith's patience as we work through a few logistical site things there. Hopefully we've got that sorted out, and we'll continue to work that to make sure that we're not impeding the county engineer's work. The expectation is to have excavation completed this week and concrete either end of this week or early next week. So things are kicking along, starting to get the middles in, and so far so good.
Okay. Anybody else have anything for Mike? Or Mike, did you have anything else for the board?
That's all for today. I'm gonna get their jail wrapped up, roof wrapped up, and, once we get that out to bid, we'll be ready to start to discuss the next round of projects. So appreciate, your continued support.
Mike, when you start on the deputies' quarters, could you keep us updated with some pictures, just like you did on the county building as well? Maintenance building, I'm sorry.
Absolutely, will do.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mike. Thanks for your time. Item
Thanks,
number,
everybody. Have a great week.
all right.
Take care, Mike.
Next item on the agenda is item number 4, discussion and possible decision on a request from the Muscatine County Public Health for a continued funding for COVID-19 mitigation activities in addition to their budgeted annual allocation for public health services with Muscatine County Public Health Director Christy Roby Williams. Christy, I would assume you're one of my callers this morning?
I sure am. Good morning. Can you
Good
hear me
morning.
okay?
Yes, we can hear you fine, thank you.
Wonderful. So first I'll kind of let you know where we're at with COVID-19. Hopefully you are all following this quite closely in our county through the coronavirus that iowa.gov website as they update the dashboard in real time. So public health, we continue to see a decrease in positive cases come through our county over the past 2 weeks. If you've been watching it, the trends are 0, we're 2 cases, maybe 1, but I will tell you since Friday, we had 7 cases. So we now have a total of 585 cases. Currently, we have known 20 active cases in our county that we are managing, which if any other communicable disease would be happening in our county, that would be pretty substantial. And we've had caseload moments where we were up in the, with active cases, 200-300. So it's been a lot to manage. We appreciate your support. What we're seeing right now, our long-term care facilities have successfully moved out of outbreak status. The businesses operations, we don't have, the businesses do not have any outbreaks. So our knowledge, we are seeing spread happen right now through general community spread. I will tell you, opening up bars, we're finding a lot of linkage there already. And so, it is ongoing, and as the governor has opened up our state, and we are going about business as usual. Many precautionary measures, unfortunately, are not being used, and so I anticipate seeing numbers continue to rise for our county. At Public Health, we're staying in our incident command structure for pandemic response mode, because it has not gone anywhere. Although our numbers have decreased, so during this decrease of the disease investigation, we're staying focused on organizing, assessing the data, getting out the best practices, staying informed with the Iowa Department of Public Health, Governor, CDC. We continue to work on information management and education for the general public in our county in multiple languages. Thanks to Brian brought this to our attention from Iowa Homeland Security, the migrant farmers, and I reached out to Eric Furness last week. We're working to create some connections and education plans specifically with the farmers who hire migrant workers in our county. We want to do that in flyers, written language, infographics, talk to them about PPE, cleaning supplies, and so on. I understand that population kind of ebbs and flows. We were informed that, I don't know if it was last summer or prior, the majority of the populations in the migrant farmer workers was Somalian. So we just have to get specific about how to get communication across in preferred language. We need to continue developing intentional outreach to different and vulnerable populations. We have really focused in on obviously utilizing media venues, both newspaper countywide and social media, news. And so looking at how do we get more information into the hands of people that may not be accessing those sources. So getting information distributed physically in the communities along with our continued virtual education. We are offering training to folks, PPE, testing, tracing, just remaining COVID vigilant, striving to keep the numbers low in our community. And we've offered a lot of individual consultations and beginning to do presentations for folks. We continue to work alongside long-term care facilities, even though they're out of outbreak status. COVID is still very much rampant and spreading through communities. So we continue to stay in touch with all the facilities on a weekly basis. We're also involved in, we were doing weekly meetings with them, but now in a monthly larger consortium meeting and providing updates, which Brian Wright joined me for this last week. We're walking through them with the step fund. They have guidance from the Iowa Department of Public Health and DIA on how to phase, do a phasing approach of reopening. So we're walking through that with the facilities. We're working closely to provide consultation with school districts. They are pulling together a lot of new policies, practices, and we're working on completing site visits with them once they get there. I think we have 2 scheduled for this week, one in Wilton, one in West Liberty. And we're also working on preparing for a surge for this summer and fall, assisting long-term care facilities and plans for their building, obviously, and building PPE stock, our own public health stock, and communication for disease investigation. So that's just a kind of a where we've been, where we're headed. And we'll share with you, we've done our own data analysis of location. And I have to be careful what I share as guided by the Iowa Department of Public Health. But I will tell you that COVID has hit every zip code in our county. Obviously, populations are higher in the Muscatine city limits, and so that is about 57% of the positive cases. And we know that there was an outbreak both Muscatine County residents that worked in Louisa County at a meat packing plant, and then also in West Liberty. So high percentage of West Liberty as well at about 29%. but all other communities do have positives in them as well. Just to give an example, we do tracing with all of our disease investigation, and so we had a person that came through positive, and it ended up being 7 people in that tracing that traveled out of state for a funeral in a vehicle that was rented, a large vehicle. All 7 were symptomatic and infected. In our tracing, come to find out, the person that had previously rented the vehicle had COVID. Ended up being positive for COVID. Our assumptions made there are the ventilation system within the vehicle and the recycled air, much like airplanes, that it may have been the cause. We had an individual in transitional care after a hospital stay. They were released home. Unknowingly had COVID. They inadvertently affected other family members as a result of many family deaths within one family. So these are different away from the meatpacking plant and long-term care facility outbreak. So I just examples to share with you that it's still very much active in our county. So I submitted Jacob Dornbush and I worked on budget requests to you for, my proposal would be to request funding on a quarterly basis so we can continue to identify, I guess, be as in constant contact with you about what's going on around COVID response. The budget, I submitted 2 budgets. One is at what we said worst case scenario or best case scenario, incident command structure at full capacity, and one at reduced capacity. On the second page of both of those budget requests, all of the funding that you give us, we divide, as you can go back and look at that budget that we submitted originally. We break down our services from STD testing and treatment, immunization, and the general community health education, communicable disease. And so the amount that we allocate to that specifically on a quarterly basis around community health education is what we're utilizing towards our COVID response work. And that is $41,994. We've reduced that off of our total request for both full capacity, incident command structure, and reduced capacity. So that is a range of what we anticipate. What we have been doing is submitting our billing based off of actual expense. In April, we submitted $46,000. That also, the $12,000 was left in the federal funds that we got through the Iowa Department of Public Health. So that was a total of $58,000 just in April, and that was us at full capacity. We were in full incident command structure at that point. In May, it was down to $34,840. And I anticipate June's claim to be less than that. So just to give you an idea of where we are in spending and tracking, we track in detailed timesheet reports that we send to Sherry, I think, and our Chronos reports. So, I mean, everything is audited. You can audit and look through at a deeper level to see the work that we're doing. And we're trying to document it in a way that would be effective for you as a county in the event you could seek any federal funding going forward. I will pause there because I just did a lot of talking. See if you have any questions.
So Christy, am I correct that you've been at the full capacity for the last couple of months in terms of employment? So you've got those 9.25 FTE currently employed, right?
Yes, these are all people that have been shifted out of their main programs into COVID-19 incident command response.
Okay, so is it that we hired anybody new, or we just moved people around?
Oh, no, we just move people around. And then when you can't, when we pull people out of their primary programs, we can't pull down grant funding. We've requested.
Sure.
I know, if you recall last time I presented, we requested, went through and asked all of our funders, can we code our COVID response to, to your funding stream? The majority said no. There were a few that said yes, as long as you're reaching out to that specific population. So these are all staff that we, yes, currently have on, that we've shifted away from their primary program into COVID response.
Okay.
No new hires.
Christie, you mentioned you were at 46,000 for April, and what was it for May?
840.
And you're tracking this through Kronos, you say?
We utilize Kronos for our time keeping
Okay.
data system.
And then you're thinking June's gonna be significantly lower.
Our numbers have decreased.
Okay.
But we're still in incident command structure. We're still doing our daily incident command virtual huddles. We're still doing COVID response education, all the information that I previously shared with you. We're still in response mode. And I foresee that, honestly, until we move into pharmaceutical intervention.
So, I want to understand this request today as a request to look, this would be a 21 budget amendment, is that correct, Nancy Sherry?
Yes.
Because we've approved, and it looks like what we've previously approved through June 30 is we're okay at. We have not gone, this is a redeployment of FTE, or this is actual bodies to COVID? Because it sounds like maybe are these public health employees, some other employees that we're bringing in? Help me understand that a little, would you, Christie?
These are public health employees currently employed by the public health department, who typically work under, we usually have one community health nurse who does communicable disease investigation. So at full capacity, when we are in full, pull that up, at full capacity, we have on here 5.5 FTE disease investigation branch. These are folks that are already employed here, but we usually have one FTE under that program. And when we're in full capacity, we actually had 10 different people at one time trained as disease investigators. We're back down to, I would say 1.5 on occasion. So these are our own team members that we're pulling out of their primary program to put into COVID response.
Well, there's a couple of things that, a couple of questions I would have there, Christie, that a bit concerning to me is, how long are we going to pull people out of their primary response? Because, these public health programs that we run are pretty important as well. So how long do we anticipate this going on? And if this is really more of turning out to be a longer term need, should we be putting temporary slots in there and not redeploying assets?
Good question.
So, I don't know about the whole board, and this just seems to me like something that we probably need to have a pretty detailed conversation on with Christie and look at kind of a long-term plan, because I don't want to see all of our public health work kind of get put on the shelf because of COVID. We've already been since May. I know Felicia has been in here a number of times talking about impending disasters out there if we don't keep reaching out to some of these critical communities that we serve, and I'm concerned about that as well. And what the implication on the budget is my secondary concern. My primary concern is delivering the service.
Well, I can attest to you that we're still delivering all of our services at Public Health. We've just adjusted or readjusted, kind of, if you will, as the governor has said, dial up, dial down. So we are still doing many services out of the Public Health Department. Some of them have been on pause when we were at full capacity. You know, it is the model of public health emergency preparedness and response that we've all trained for. So if you bring in new staff, you have to train them in FEMA, in NIMS, National Incident Management System. So I don't know that that would be financially savvy to do either, as we balance in the unknown territory of COVID. I think it's more financially responsible to work with the teams that have already been trained and gone through that.
Yeah, so again, you know, we're not paying more people, why do we need more money? That's the question. And how does that affect anything? So I need to understand that much clearer than I do right now. And I get the whole notion of grant funds but from what I've seen, I can't understand that.
Thank you, because I don't understand it at all either. When we have the same amount of people, are we dealing with more overtime situations? Is that where we're at? Are we dealing with more equipment needs? I'm struggling here.
Maybe it would be in our best interest to have a work session where we are able to kind of discuss this, have more information at our fingertips, discuss it in more wide-ranging detail, because I think you guys are doing a whole lot of stuff you've never done before. We're trying to kind of understand it from a 30,000-foot perspective, and I think greater communication amongst everyone with more information exchangeable than available here would probably be to our benefit.
Yeah, I would agree, because I think that, you know, I get that we have to, you know, this is something, you know, we've set our tax levies, we have what dollars we have, so we need to understand if we have to start making decisions on commitments we've already made for the next year, we're gonna need to understand that in fairly short order here, because July 1st is clicking in pretty quickly. And we don't have we don't print money, so we have to figure out, we have what we have at this point from a tax revenue, and we just have to figure out where we're gonna deploy those resources. So I think that's something we have to think pretty hard about.
Absolutely. I'm happy to meet with you whenever. Let me know, and to provide further explanation. And I would bring Jacob Thornbush with me as well, and Holly Barrett, and Joe Furr.
Awesome.
Can you bring the Chronos records too?
We've been giving those to Sherry.
Okay.
Okay.
Appreciate that,
Well,
Christie.
it sounds like maybe that what we should do today, Nancy, and I think Nathan has agreed, we set some kind of a work session with Christie and you and Sherry, and we can all sit down and kind of go through these numbers, because, you know, I think we've got dollars allocated in this budget cycle through the end of the year. I mean, we have your allocation for next year, you know, you may run ahead a little bit and spend on it. We want to continue the work, and we need to continue the work, but what this board's gonna have to do is figure out, you know, if we have to come up with the funding, how are we gonna do that? Okay? Anything else for Christie this month?
Thank you.
Thank you,
All right,
Christie.
thank you, Christie.
Keep up the good work.
All right. So, moving on to item number 5 on our agenda, items with the county engineer Keith White. Item number 5A is discussion and possible action to approve various utility permits. Good morning, Keith.
Good morning. We have 4 permits this morning. The first is from Night Owl Wireless of Walcott, Iowa. And they simply want to place a communications cabinet, a handhold at 3820 165th Street and bore across the road. They're placing an antenna on top of a sidewalk. That's the first one. The other three are all from Telcom Construction, Clearwater, Minnesota. And the first is placing a drop along Underwood Avenue from one pedestal to another and serving a residence at 1610 Underwood Avenue. And the second is another, back up on Night Owl, that's a fiber crossing the road there too. These are 3-pair telephone cables. So the second one here is another 3-pair serving 3628 and 181st Street. They're just basically born under the road from a pedestal to serve that residence. And the third, the final 3-pair service drop is the 1699 North Isett, and we're boring across North Isett Avenue from a pedestal to serve that.
What was the address on that second one? I'm sorry, Keith.
1610.
3628 181st Street.
3628 181st. Got it. All right, thank you. Having trouble keeping all the numbers.
Last one was 1699 North Isett.
And the other one 1610.
And that
Yeah, first.
came out today.
Okay,
Are they running fiber for internet, or you said fiber for telephone?
These last three are all 3-pair telephone cables. The first one, which I backed up and confused folks, Night Owl is a fiber because they're a wireless internet provider. So they were running a fiber across the road.
when you permit those, Keith, do you require a tracer with those two? On like a, like a fiber, yeah, okay. Okay, I'd accept a motion on those.
So moved.
Have a motion by Nathan, second by Scott. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Projects update. Do you have projects updates this morning, Keith?
Yes, projects, I'll start with culverts 20, culverts 2020, which is getting close to done. All the sites are open. Triple B's the contractor on that. They worked on the punch list for 122nd Street. They've lined through the 4 culverts on F70. And this week they hope to finish the liners. And they said all the projects are open to traffic. They've got fencing, seating, those sorts of things to do. On F58, Old Highway 6, Haggerty's the contractor up there. They finished up a couple pipes on the east end, and they still have about 3 culverts to go, getting closer to Walcott with that end. And Manap's East Iowa is supposed to, or Eastern Division is supposed to be in this week to place the patches on over the culverts that are open, but obviously weather dependent. And I guess I should briefly touch on, you know, the Manance has restructured, so a bunch of contractors that were this name and that name and the other name are now all one, Manance East Division. So when we would commonly have gotten Iowa Construction, they're still there, they're still the same people, but they're part of a reorganized group. 120th Street, where we have the water in the ditch, and the contractor's not been able to get back to deal with that. Going to come this week, weather dependent, you can see what it's doing today, cool weather. And then our paving project, again, coming from the west at Independence to the east, they've gotten through the 2 big curves with their paving. Basically, the plan at this point is we were giving them permission to pave to just past Funk's Hill. They're getting that intersection ready. This is all part of staging to keep access to that. Everything back to the west looks 99% complete probably to the public, but it's really not. There's more work to be done there, but, I'd say progress is pretty close to on schedule, but again, as we get towards the subdivisions and Lutheran homes and those businesses along there, the stages of construction will probably slow a little bit as you wait for cure times in between. And nothing on design because everybody's been on inspection, but questions on construction.
Keith, when you get time, can you send us a few pics of G28?
I can, they are on the website too, but I can certainly send them out, no problem.
Anything else for Keith this morning?
On other, I'm just gonna tell you, sure enough, trucks are not making it for the fiscal year, so as I mentioned, I did pull forward the delivery of a motor grader to at least cover some of the dollars that should have been spent there. They're all coming, but probably in July.
We think you'll have them all ready for snow season and all
Oh, yeah,
that?
yeah, but just, now instead of end of June, we're in the end of July. And I mean, some of those, it's the, like the GM pickups, it's the plant starting up and closing down and starting up and closing down. Good question. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Keith. All right, item number 6 is discussion of possible decision regarding opening county buildings to the public. So we have a number of people here today. We'll just have a brief discussion. I think we talked about initially when we went to appointment only, and I don't know how that's been going. I'll leave it open to a number of you to talk about it and kind of see where we are. Where are we at? Every building is currently locked, appointment only. I mean, we can
I
kind of.
believe that the sheriff, the lobby of the sheriff's office is open. And they, starting, I believe today, they were to the point where they were actually gonna have the reception window open and be dealing with the public that way. I think all other county buildings are still essentially closed to the public.
And Jim, I think you sent us something about the courthouse, correct?
I sent out
Courts-
the,
Yeah, well, yeah, either one. Yeah, then the public can see your smiling face.
thank you. Good morning. Yes, I did send out the guidelines that we received here about a week or so ago from the court or court administration relative to what the court was going to require before the courts could reopen. So in a nutshell, non-jury matters can open effective July 13th or earlier if the courthouse is open and we work through these requirements. And currently, a judge has been assigned to each county. In our case, I believe it's Judge Rydell was able to confirm. And so that's the non-jury matter. The jury matters are still pushed out now till mid-September. So my office is still closed to the public, as Nancy indicated. So we continue to go to meetings, but again, that requires the defendant's cooperation and participation, which sometimes isn't granted or they don't acquiesce. We've set up a terminal in our office with Bill's help to be able to allow officers and witnesses and victims to come to our office to participate in those, to help facilitate from our standpoint as much as we can in this system. We've met with the magistrates. They're interested in reopening and re-engaging the magistrate court, non-jury type things. And so I think we at least now understand what court administration is going to require, and we need to have that conversation, at least in my opinion, that allows us to determine if we can reopen the courthouse and we can meet these requirements and who's doing what and how we're going to do all of that. So that's a pretty good amount of decision-making that's going to happen, but that's where we're at. But, you know, July 13th, frankly, is not all that far away. And, you know, if the board determines that it's appropriate to reopen things, or however that's going to happen, I can't speak to the health side of it. I just know in my office's side of it, doing business is tough, and there are lots of things that have been suspended in the midst of this that continue to be suspended in terms of the fine collections and in terms of being able to really deal with people and get cases processed and just pure efficiency. So I realize it's a road back, but I think that conversation, at least from my office's perspective, is ready to be had.
Jim, what kind of speedy trial provision concerns do we have here? in
Well,
this
it's
county?
all been suspended pending
Wow.
the pandemic.
Wow.
So, yes, you know, there are several, say this as delicately as I can. There are things that have happened to defendants and things that have happened to the system that are both positive and negative. Obviously, at the jail, we have made certain policies and procedures to try to limit who comes in and getting a COVID positive case and having all of that to deal with. So, in that case, there's people that aren't being arrested, they're being cited to appear. If they don't agree to appear in person, or, in a meeting, a go-to meeting, then it's not getting done. And so all of those things are sort of being idled. At the same time, there are people in jail, you know, those would be the ones that are the most concerned about speedy trial because they're incarcerated. But all of those timeframes have been suspended, and as it looks now, the court system's looking at using go-to as much as they can through the end of the year.
Okay. That's certainly one thing that concerns folks in my profession is we've got our trial dates. For instance, I have a trial scheduled the 19th of July, and I'm thinking that's pretty likely to get bumped.
If it's a jury trial, it isn't gonna happen.
Yeah.
If it's a non-jury trial, then it could happen. But, you know, there's other practical considerations. We have to be able to notice witnesses. That's usually a 6 weeks advance notice, and, you know, we're just gonna have some problems, and things we need to adjust to. But I think starting that conversation, you know, until somebody decides we're gonna open a courthouse, under whatever parameters are determined to be appropriate, it's just sort of sitting there, and everybody is idle, so to speak.
Well, I think from our perspective, you know, the courthouse, really the only kind of entities that operate day to day in there are judicial entities.
And fines collection.
And fines collection. Yeah, so we have kind of said, you know, we're gonna let the judicial branch drive that now. And that's kind of been my opinion. I mean, if we need to,
And that's exactly the message we've given the court is,
Yeah.
we close the courthouse at the request of the judicial
yeah,
system.
Judge
And
Greaves,
we will open it again when they feel they are ready, and
Well, the guidelines are out, and so what they are saying, the judge needs to affirm that these things are happening or have happened, and then we can proceed forward. So, it's just a matter of making sure that those things happen, and then, at least in my mind, who's responsible for what, and how we're going to do things. And I much like the previous conversation I think you had with public health, I think it's a kind of a working sit down and just work through logistics. I'm sure Sherry has probably dealt with some of this, or at least she's the hub I've talked to about these sorts of things. So I just think we need to at least have the conversation and get some clarity as to how we're gonna be able to go forward.
yeah, I read through the guidance you sent me, and it was typical of a court document, quite lengthy. And my attention span isn't. So, yeah, there are a lot of little things in there, and I think that's some of the stuff we have to think about from a county building perspective. We opened up for appointments the 15th, right? What's
Yep,
this, the
last Monday.
22nd, last Monday? I mean, have we seen that? I mean, Do we have other questions for Jim? We don't need to leave him on the spot. Thanks, Jim. Well, I think
And
we'll,
just so you know, before we start going any farther, all of the department heads were invited to attend this meeting either in person or via go-to meeting to give input on how they see things have been going or need to go.
yeah.
Is there any reason for me to stay, or can I go back to my office?
Go catch some bad
I
guys.
want to say the discussions, because I read through that document, discussions have been had a number of times with the state officials, that it's their responsibility to do the things that are required there. It's not the county's responsibility. If they are prepared to provide their masks, their sanitizer, they know that our staff are not gonna do that. So the only issue we have is how we handle, I believe, fine collection office that's over there. They've
And
requested.
access, we would need to get people in the door, whatever that's gonna look like.
Are we doing that by appointment now? Are they allowed to?
Mike's at the back door with the sheriff's office and basically is there in business hours and allows people to come in that have something to do that, I'm not sure they all have appointments, I couldn't speak to that. I've gone over several times without an appointment, but I've met with the crime collections folks and I've looked at some court files that I needed to, so that's all I've done. There are people coming and going, but I don't know that much has been done by way of appointment. And, because you're right, most of it's our state employees. I think our office is dealing with, we're, the fine collection's suspended as well, so everything's sort of sitting there. And, I think, I agree that the responsibility of the state to do these things is most generally on them. I just think it's a larger discussion about access and what we're gonna do, whether that's by appointment or whether that's opening the door and how we regulate people in, because I don't think the court system's gonna be able to make what I would call the cattle call at 9 a.m. Everybody shows up. There's gonna have to probably be a bit more systematic approach to the scheduling of cases and limiting, understanding who needs to come and what we're gonna do with people. Those are the things that I think they don't impact us, but they do by opening the door to courthouse and then figuring out what we're gonna do with people.
Do some of the people make payments on fines?
Yeah, people can
Collections?
continue, we just
Why
can't
they?
continue to enforce the collection, I had two call me Friday night, oddly, as you asked the question, and leave a message, and so, I forwarded it to them this morning, and there are people that are continuing to do that, but we are not sending out new, there are a lot of, I don't remember exactly how many Angela said, but it's pretty substantial in terms of the number of letters that are being held. And I think the deadline on it is maybe the 25th this week, so we might hear more, it might get continued, it might not, I don't know what they'll do, but it's not operating at its normal efficiency level any more than my office is. We're doing what we can, but it's not, it's not being used to its fullest potential.
But on that note, in the treasurer's office, we're receiving lists from the fine collections clerk for people that have made payments that are trying to renew or get something done. So they're not just staying stagnant, they're getting taken care of. So we have she emails us the notices of people that are making payments that need to renew their vehicle or whatever, so we're able to get that done.
Yeah, my guess is the folks that were in the process and system are doing okay. It's the getting new people onboarding and helping them. And that's I think one of the really nice programs that we have put in to get people that got themselves upside down and can kind of help them dig their way out. So I'd like to see that come back and get into operation again. Okay.
As far as the state offices, the last conversation I had with Judge Grieve was that they would let us know when they have things in order and are ready to open doors and what, do they do it by appointment or not?
And the fine collections office is by the clerk's office, correct?
Correct.
It's right there, yeah.
First
So-
floor on the, I'm gonna call it Mulberry side.
Okay.
Sherry, does the courthouse provide maintenance and janitorial services for themselves, or do we provide that?
We provide the maintenance on the building and janitorial services.
some of that list had so much of the safety, cleaning and stuff like that on that list you
And
sent out.
We've had a number of conversations with the judges and the court administration staff, that our staff will continue to do the cleaning they were doing before, but we have no intention of adding staff to do any extra. You know, there's been discussion about, as each person comes to the counter, somebody needs to disinfect the counter. They understand that that's their role,
Okay,
and the state will provide the wipes or whatever for their people to do that. And our people will do what they've always done with cleaning the building. And that being said, they are wiping down door handles and stuff more than they did before, but I don't think the county's prepared to staff that.
no, I'm just talking about that multi-page list that was sent by the
Right,
state,
yeah.
kind of
And I think-
identified a list of the requirements that they were gonna put in place prior to opening up. That's why I was wondering.
I believe they understand that that's their responsibility. They made a request, Heidi made a request to me about, you know, are we okay if they affix signage to the walls as long as it doesn't damage the paint and tape on the floors or whatever, and I said, yes, as long as they're not doing anything that causes any permanent damage, absolutely. They're providing those, they're handling all that.
Okay.
And the last meeting I had with them, Judge Bree felt like they were not ready to open the doors at that point, but that's been a while ago. So, you know, I think that list is to inform us of what they need to have done. Now, if they decide to open the doors tomorrow, that affects the fine collection office, and they need to be prepared for the public in the building. So I think that's where we fit into this. The medical examiner's office, they're in there when they need to do reports or whatever, they're not, you know, they're handling that.
Yeah, I saw
That's-
one of the medical examiners going in this morning, and Michael, the deputy
Right.
Wade let him in, and it's all good,
So is this decision Judge Greaves' decision?
The protocol or the guidelines came from the district court administrator, and the judge that's assigned to the county apparently has to sign the document that these things have
That
been
have been in
met.
place?
And so.
And that's Judge Greaves or Judge Rydell?
This says chief judge, district, but I'm assuming that Judge Rydell and this, that was my question of Heidi, who would be the judge that would be doing this for Muscatine? And she indicated that it was Judge Rydell. That's all that I know, because I asked that question.
Yeah, we've had a number of judges involved in the conversations, telephone meetings throughout this process, so I wasn't sure who ultimately is in charge there.
But this has been out a week, roughly a little over a week at this point, 10 days. And, we've done the appointment side of things here at the county, but the rest of it's just sort of sat there, so. I believe Sherry's correct, most of this is gonna be done by the state. I'm just wondering if we need to initiate that conversation.
And that's where I'm leading into, if I think it would warrant maybe an email by you or by Sherry, or just CCing and Sherry and saying, hey, are we close to opening up so we can, you know, start scheduling your fine, you know, give us a few days lead time so we don't know it's tomorrow like you're mentioning. And that way, we as a board can also share that with the rest to know that, hey, we're looking at, you know, 7 days from now opening up. Or is it the 13th of July still the date that you're looking at?
I'm happy to reach out to the court and indicate that we're willing to have the conversation if they are, and to let us know what they see going forward, and that works for me.
Because I haven't heard anything about how close they are to being ready.
I think just, again, trying to keep good communication with them will help us, and I think that's.
They have the same problem, they're figuring it out as they go, and it's not there's always, there's a lot of different opinions, and
Yes.
so, you have to deal with those.
I don't know if it's been discussed here, but there was some conversation, I think Scott was on that phone call about if they could close the Third Street doors if necessary and bring everybody through the other side, the Fourth Street side, because that's where the handicap
Correct.
ramp is, and we said the county would have no problem with them handling it that way, so I don't know where they're at with that, but we have said, let us know in order to reopen, and I've heard nothing, so.
Yeah, but depending on the number of people, I mean, you could come in Fourth Street and out Third Street, but then you're monitoring 2 doors, and if we're gonna continue to monitor the doors, I mean, you have all those things to deal with. I think they're just logistical, and we can get through them, but we've we've got to get to that conversation because it's time to have it. You know, July 13th, if that means anything, is not that far away.
No,
And we're, you know, we all know that we are idle to, still able to do some functions. I'm not saying that. It's just we're idled in a lot of ways and restricted.
okay,
Thank you.
thank you, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
I just kind of made a list of buildings, maybe we just run down it quick and just kind of think about, I know we got everybody here. So we have county engineer and planning and zoning kind of out there. What are thoughts there? Have you gone, you guys have been probably pretty much appointment anyway. A lot of your work is out and about.
Yeah, we've been doing everything by appointment. Just this morning, we were able to assemble and have our plexiglass guard that covers pretty much our whole counter now. Got it up, so we're able to do whatever the board decides as far as opening. I think we'd be fine with moving forward.
I kind of think about this in two stages. I think we have offices that get public interaction, but it's not high volume public interaction. I mean, P&Z, half a dozen people a day maybe, engineer's office, couple a day maybe, or less, I don't know. Versus maybe here in the administration office where we may get 100 people a day. And I think that when, as we kind of step forward, we'll have to think about that a little bit. So Keith, what about your office? What are your thoughts? Are you,
Well, I don't think the counter is frankly any issue for us. More significantly, our employees are time shifted to help reduce grouping, keep them apart, and I think we would continue to do that. It's been very effective at us, I think, in how we do that, and keeping people out of our out shops, strange people and that. So I think that's the more significant thing in our operation, so we don't have everybody coming together at once and gathering in a room in the morning. They meet outdoors, their time shifted. So
yeah, and I would see no reason to change that if that's working for you.
I think certainly through the summer or until things are truly quieter, we will continue that with our schedule. It's not cold out, we're not making them stand out in the cold, maybe stand out in the heat, but they're out there all day anyway, so. No big difference for us. I think we do engineering staff in particular to have meetings to attend. Those all continue to be mostly go-to meetings or those sorts of things, or canceled. We've had an ISAC survey, don't know if you all have or not, or whether or not our association wishes to participate, those sorts of things. Again, I think for the shorter term, we'll continue to do business that way with go-to meeting or Zoom or one of those things. And frankly, there are, while you lose some of the interactive aspect, there are certainly efficiencies to meeting that way and eliminating travel, those things.
Yeah, I certainly will attest, I probably saved about 8-10 hours a week in drive time that I don't have to deal with anymore, so I'm kinda liking it the last couple months. But the meetings you do have effectiveness challenges too.
And I guess I further add, I would, I asked Christie, our office manager, she doesn't want or need a shield, we don't have one, but I really would prefer to restrict people coming in and out of our buildings still. Just don't think we do not normally have that, so we don't need a parade of people in there. Certainly can have the door open, but they can stop at the counter and not be further in there.
Okay,
That's my 2 cents.
okay.
You have a lot of salespeople come in.
Yeah,
He likes it in
you
the
have
building.
salespeople or you have somewhat random people that wanna be in there to use the bathroom. I mean, frankly, probably more when it come from Eric's side of the wall, they just don't need to be back using our restrooms or any of that till we're a little more clear. That's my opinion.
I would say I will need to know relatively soon, you know, as far as this building, because we do have Board of Adjustment Building Commission scheduled for July 10th. Right now, we were assuming that this room would potentially be open and it would be an in-person meeting. We had GoToMeeting last month, or earlier this month, I guess. There were some challenges with the number of people that have to connect from some of the rural areas and even out of state, when you deal with some utility companies and things. So if that's gonna continue in a virtual platform, we need to know that relatively soon so we can make reasonable notification to those petitioners.
How many people do you usually have? It just
That can
depends,
vary.
I'm sure.
If it's a controversial case, we can have the room packed. If it's not, and there's about 2 cases, we could have 1 or 2 people in addition to the commission and, the secretary and myself. But it just depends. We have no way of knowing till the day of the meeting who's going to show up and is interested in the case.
Yeah, that's the challenge. How do you plan for something you don't know? Okay.
Well, and you have the issue that if we open the doors to allow people to come in for that meeting, they have access to the entire building. We don't really have any way of restricting that. We certainly don't, none of the offices in this building feel like they have the staff to have somebody at the door monitoring. And that's the challenge you run into. All of the recommendations talk about limiting number of people, but in this building, that's a challenge to do unless somebody's at the front door and potentially at the back door, because that's our handicap access. Monitoring which office they're going to as well, because, you know, if we have 20 people come in the building and 4 of them are going to each office, that's not a big deal. But if we have 20 people come in and they're all going to the treasurer's office, then we have some challenges in terms of how we follow the guidelines.
Yes, and I don't know how, Ken Beck had mentioned that Scott County had some type of an appointment-based software that they were utilizing. I almost say it's like going to a restaurant, you know, they give you a little flashing card, and you go out to your car and it flashes. I mean, if you've been to a doctor's office, which I have been in the last several months, you know, that's kind of what they're doing. You come in, you check in, you're sent back to your car, and then they'll communicate with you. You know, the challenge I have with that is it requires a cell phone, and I'm not sure everybody in this world always has a cell phone. But he said, he kind of indicated that Scott County, because, you know, if you've been to their admin building, they have a lot of challenges. You know, you have elevators, and how do you get people in and enforce social distancing while they're coming to the offices that need the activity. And I think they were gonna utilize a tool like that to try to manage, you know, that ebb and flow of traffic, but I don't know much about
Well,
it.
they already have that pneumatic system, so when you come in there, kind of like out of driver's license, you pull a ticket whether you're there for property tax or for motor vehicle, and it has a number. So that goes into a queue, so they know what customer number is waiting for what clerk, and then they have a digital system over the clerk that lights up with that number, meaning they're calling them. So a lot of them, because they were gonna expand on that same system, I don't know exactly how they're doing it either, if they've got that number system outside that people are, you know, and then they're, giving them a pager or something, but I've heard too that at this point, they're still advertising that they're open by appointment, because it's the same kind of thing. That's the challenge that we're having. We're taking appointments for the customers that have the more complicated transactions, but for the most part, we're still walking people over the phone, doing renewals, title transfers, those things, and I've had a lot of good compliments that people didn't realize they could take care of this stuff that way, that they thought they had to come in. And there's really very few occasions where they really do have to come in. There's some things that if there's been a death and they need to present more papers, or they have to have something notarized or something like that, but we're still only allowing one person to come in per transaction. The other person could be in the car and they take it out to get them to sign. But our problem is, as we go to the door to let one person in, there's 3 other people out there that you're having to answer questions or deal with or fight back to not let in, and you know, it's a challenge, and we're on a schedule to keep moving, so
Yeah.
but we haven't had any complaints, and, I think I'm gonna continue to try to put more of the information on our website and the forms. We direct people to the website to download the forms, we email the forms, you know, there's so many different ways they can do it, and they find out, and a lot of people say, I've never filled out an application. Well, that's probably true, because we fill it out for them and print it out and give it to them to sign, so they don't even realize that there's been an application, so it's not hard to fill out, it's just educating them. And I put that press release in the Discover paper last week, and, we got good comments from that. It also listed that website, and, we've pretty much walked people through what they need to get done, but the people that are leaving to go out of town, or they have a critical reason, we're taking care of.
How much appointment activity have you seen?
The girls they're trying to spread them out at least 30 minutes at a time, because you really don't know how long it's gonna happen, and, some of them are booked every 30 minutes for this past weekend.
So you've had pretty good, one of the things you were concerned about was there's some pent up demand as things come in.
Yeah.
That we may need to get the bubble by us through appointments before you open the doors. 'Cause you
Some of
couldn't
them,
tell.
even the language barrier, it's
Yeah.
easier to work with them face to face than
Yeah.
over the phone. Some of them have poor connections on the phone, you can't hear the conversations. It is like a call center over there. It about drives us all nuts by the end of the day, because the phone just rings, and, and everybody's having a different discussion. It gets loud and quite confusing, but
Right,
we're
sure.
getting through it, and everybody's getting taken care of.
I'm assuming once the door's open, you'll be really busy for a while.
Our numbers are staying consistent, we're getting the work done, we're staying up with the averages, taxes are being paid. Unless the governor extends the 25th deadline, we got almost $1 million paid online over the weekend. So, we're gonna be, and I didn't get a chance to run those reports, but right now we stand at just over $1 million delinquent. But now there's a big discussion of tax sale. At this point, it's been postponed, but we're hoping that the governor will allow us to cancel it for this year, because we will not be able to hold it before June 30, because you have to send the notices, you have to send the publications and do all of that. But if she doesn't cancel, we still have to hold it within the next few months, which we're gonna be working on new taxes to go out, so it's gonna be a push. But I did send courtesy delinquent notices to remind people that their taxes were not paid, and that's brought in a lot of payments, because some folks just simply forgot. So I think, overall, we're just anticipating what she's gonna do.
For the appointments that we're having, are we requiring them to wear any facial protection?
Nope. We have the screens, the employees have been given the mask if they feel necessary. Frankly, it's hard, it's hot, it's uncomfortable. Our employees are feeling pretty safe behind the acrylic, and that's worked out fairly well. We do have that space in the middle, but the spots on the floor, it's amazing how people come and put their feet right on the feet to stand, and that's where they're supposed to do. And we do get, where do you have a restroom? And, we haven't been told that we can't tell them no, but we do try to limit that. And we do have problems with people that come in and have a boat and a trailer if they wanna get business done in both offices, but they haven't made an appointment. So we have to work some of that out too. Our problem is just like Nancy said, just like I said too, now even going to the door is a problem. When we unlock the door and you have people come in, where's that overflow? We've got 4 spots on the floor for those people to step up, but there isn't a place to keep social distancing for the line. And how do you direct who comes in and who doesn't? And we definitely don't have the staff members, because it's all we can do to make the appointments. And then they're trying to clean the counter off after that person. So that's the problem with when you're at the door, they're escorting them in, escorting them out. The person at the door that wants to come in and get something done, even if we can take them right now, we feel we need to go down and wipe the counter off before we bring the next person in. So, it all takes time and effort.
What I've observed is there's difficulty with social distancing with the staff, letting people in and out the door. You know, that it looks like there's some exposure there.
Oh, definitely.
Pretty tough to do that.
Face to face out there. And then you got everybody else coming up to you while they're
Yeah.
dropping things in the drop box with questions and.
But so far, just appointments are working fine. Any complex issues we're able to deal with, and
And we obtain masks and have offered multiple masks to all of our employees. Some offices have taken advantage of that, some haven't. And frankly, the offices that have come and got them, some of them just don't wear them even though they have them, so.
yeah.
I get strong feedback that our employees really don't want to be required to wear masks.
Yeah.
And frankly, our employees may be wearing the mask outside of the office when they go places in public. That's what I'm hearing, but they don't really care to wear them all day here because they don't feel it's a big enough threat. But they are trying to stay healthy and conscious of
Yeah.
each other.
The appointment system's working out great for our office.
No problem.
We actually can get them in and out faster, because if I have time on the phone, when I'm setting up their appointment, I can have the application filled out by the time they're off the phone. So they're ready to go when they come in, it's just swapping out stuff.
Okay. Randy, how are things going for you? What are your,
Our office has been in business as normal. I mean, we've been handling the majority of our homesteads, military credits over the phone or email or by mail. And then when we get those in by email or by mail, we call people and say, hey, we got your application. We'll get it taken care of for you, so the communication's been good. Going out to the field, we started about 2 weeks ago, mostly new construction. So there's not a lot of interaction with contractors and stuff, if there's a lot of people that are on site that, staff's been instructed to wear their mask. But, we're gonna keep their social distance. But otherwise, we haven't been going into existing homes unless asked. If we would go in, it would be a no-touch type of thing. If a person wanted us to come through and review a house, they'd have to open up the doors, turn on the lights, open the doors to the bathroom, so that we weren't touching anything inside. So we've kind of set some ground rules, and so far we haven't had any issues.
and you provided PPE to the employees, the staff to do such, and
Yeah,
you have an ample supply and there's no issues?
well, we haven't come down and got any masks, we had ordered some masks before, and so we had a few of the purchased masks that we had, so yeah.
Okay.
And there's still plenty of masks available in my office. And they're the cloth masks that can be washed and reused, so. Do you have anything you want to say?
Probably the hardest thing for us is we were open for a month and it went great for us. Now that it's locked, we have to go down, all the way downstairs to escort people up, and that hasn't exactly been pleasant. But we're ready to open whenever anybody else is. So, because we don't have the traffic anybody else does. So we can handle the traffic in our office. We have not had any problem with social distancing in our office, and keeping it that way.
We had the board review in May and first part of June, and didn't have any issues. We did all of our board review stuff over phone interviews. We only had 16 appeals this year, so it went pretty seamless, so it was pretty easy, really. But got one appeal already to PAB, so we'll see what happens with the other ones. We, like everybody else, we have our safety screen in place, so yeah, we're ready to open
And I'm
whenever.
gonna assume, Bill, you don't get much traffic to your,
No, actually, our traffic is generally to other offices,
yeah.
so
You-
whatever they may have, we bring back.
You'd appreciate a few visitors downstairs, would you?
No, probably not.
Okay. And I know Kurt and Felicia, how are things in community services and what's your take?
we've gone to mailing out checks, and on any given week, we're mailing out between 300 and 700 checks a week. Paying bills and personal money and all that kind of stuff, and that's worked out really well for us. We haven't had a single person complain about, I can't come get my check right now. And in our HAB homes and in our nursing homes and that sort of thing, they're confined anyway. They aren't coming out to pick up checks. Normally, they would come into our office every day and they pick up a check and they'd go out and go to Walmart or whatever the case may be. They're not doing that, so that's been a real benefit to the providers as well, to not have to come down to our office and pick up checks. We had 2 emergency appointments last week, and that worked out just fine for us. Our general assistants, we're doing a lot of referring to people where there is more money for assistance than we have, and that's worked out really well. We've been able to do GA over the phone, pretty much. In our office, we'll have the acrylic up and that sort of thing. But in general, I wanna get rid of all the chairs and tables that are out in the lobby, because we have folks that come in and charge their cell phones and do some of those kinds of things in our lobby. And so, we have a population that's probably extremely high risk for COVID-19, only because they don't social distance, they're not wearing masks, they're walking the streets, they're huddling together, they're doing all those kinds of things. So I have a very, very high-risk population incoming when they come in for general assistance or anything like that. I think if we stuck with appointment only for a while, that'd be helpful.
Okay. Good. Kurt?
Well, pretty much all of our facilities are open, other than the Environmental Learning Center. We had discussion in our last board meeting, possibly, because we've been getting a lot of requests, you know, people, it's been great for parks, and if you notice, parks are just packed with people, and everybody's using them, and that's great. For the most part, people social distancing, there's, you know, places are not, but I think a lot of it comes down to responsibility of the park user, building user, you know. The playground's opened up, we're not out there sanitizing those, it's impossible to do that, and that's their responsibility to bring their hand sanitizer along. Our bathrooms are open next to it, go in and wash their hands when they're done, and, you know, watch what their kids are doing. But the Environmental Learning Center, like I said, a lot of requests to have it open. We're probably looking at, within the next few weeks, opening it up. Probably looking at going just Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. So it'd be, you know, 8 to 4:30 on Tuesday and Thursday, and noon till 4 on Saturday. It'll look a little bit different inside than what people are used to. Some of the kids area will be removing, you know, we had puppets, you know, play stuffed animals, those sorts of things. We don't know how we would keep those clean. So those are probably gonna be removed. We would still have all the touchscreen interactive displays that we have, and again, just putting up signs telling people it's their responsibility. We'll be cleaning them, you know, once or twice a day, but we're not gonna do it after everybody that's in there. It's just impossible. We don't have the staff to do that. So I'm hoping by also having a day in between, that gives us time to clean, and also maybe for kind of self-disinfect from some of the things you hear that, you know, the virus doesn't last that long on some surfaces. So that's kind of where we're looking at right now, you know.
Good. Okay. So it sounds like, you know, really, I mean, I think when we originally talked about it, we all thought that, you know, we'd just go to the appointment only, kind of stick there for a while, just see how things do, see if we can get some of the pent-up demand pulled back. And I mean, I haven't heard a lot of dates out there. You heard the courts are talking, what Jim said, July 13th they're trying.
I think Christie's probably still on the phone. Christie, are you still with us?
Christie, you still there?
I am.
Do you have anything?
Both of you, Lizette Davis from the Iowa Department of Public Health, both of us are on here to provide any consultation you would like.
Do you have anything that you want to input, or are you just available if the board, if anyone has questions?
available if anybody has any questions.
And in the board packet, I included, some of the materials that Christie had provided to me. A press release for Clinton County, there's, some information from Isaac about health screenings and a little pamphlet about trying to figure out if you're ready to open. Those were all in your packets.
Well, the biggest stumbling block, obviously, in my mind, is the treasurer's office. That's the biggest stumbling block.
We're always the problem.
Well,
Let's get Joan up to it, right?
Well, and it's probably not just the treasurer's office, frankly. If the doors are open, we get a lot of traffic, people that don't know where they want to go. So my office sees a lot of traffic.
So do we.
Yeah.
Well, and
Just street.
Not as much as they do, but we,
Right.
and being down the hall from them, there could be a conflict really there.
And
If you get too many people
community
in.
services
Seeking
building has
information.
more traffic than any.
Yeah, or transferring boat.
agree.
We've been overwhelmed by boats and ATVs right now, because there's nothing else to do.
Yeah.
So people are renewing boats they haven't renewed in 20 years, you know? So now, I think if you opened the door, there would be a conflict, we would probably end up into their space.
I don't know
Because you
if
can't
the
control
back,
how many people come in.
if the back door can be opened like it was when you were open for voting, and allowing people to access your offices by that back door, you know, people don't read the signs, so you can put signs all over. I
Yeah.
mean, right now, the phone numbers are the best, and usually whoever's at the top is gonna get the most calls, and we took administration off at the top, so that.
And we appreciate that, because we still get probably 20 to 30 phone calls a
Yeah.
day that don't know what office they want to talk to.
Well, and we try to put, you know, for motor vehicle or taxes after the treasurer, so they know, but again, they don't read.
Right.
And, if
Well,
they
in
can
the
catch
phone
somebody.
book, the treasurer's office is, the number's wrong.
Yep, it's our number.
It's transposed, so people call us because it says it's disconnected.
We are telling our people to come down the driveway to the back of the building, but you wouldn't believe how many people are ending up in the alley.
Sure it would.
They think the back of the building is really the back of the building.
We
How do I
kind
get
of
over the
describe it as, you know, to the end of like the attorney's part.
That's what I tell them, yeah,
Where you
in
see the
between the
sign for
parking lot and
visitor
the
parking, go up into that parking lot and you'll find a side door kind of to our building is how we've been describing it. We haven't had too much trouble.
So
We had a guy this morning walk all the way down and around and back up.
Pretty explicit about how we describe
I
it.
think one of the issues we're gonna have is if we open it up,
We can't control it.
how are we gonna trace anybody that comes in the building if all of a sudden we have an outbreak?
Right, because you don't know who's here and
Yeah,
who's
who's
here.
here? How do you
May
know?
not even been from the building.
Yeah.
Well, and even now, we've been instructed that, you know, it's up to our office how we're handling it, so I've left it up to our clerks how they're handling each appointment they make, because they're the ones having the contact going and getting the person and walking them out. So, you know, some of them are very adamant about asking the screening questions and doing this and that, but there's no, I mean, even if we had an outbreak now, we really wouldn't know. We have a list of who was here on what day, but, you know,
Well, but and how do we know that where it came
Yeah.
from? All of our, we have, 40-some employees in this building that we don't know what they're doing when they're not here.
Right.
So,
That's my point.
As long as the appointment thing is working, and we haven't had a lot of complaints, I don't know why we just wouldn't continue it for now.
Yeah, I think it makes sense, to me, it makes sense that we do that. I think the screening questions at the appointment are important to continue to emphasize that we ask those questions, keep people thinking about it. And I would say we just revisit it kind of mid-July, it sounds like, because if the courts open up, then that'll drive an additional amount of traffic to all of our facilities too, because it kind of goes hand in hand. I mean, there have been a lot of actions that have been suspended here that are probably keeping traffic down a little bit too. So I think does that make sense? We just kind of revisit this probably around that mid, I don't know what the day, I had my calendar up. What'd you say?
July 6th or July 13th.
I will remind you that
13.
I will be gone from It's July 3rd through, I won't be back till the 20th.
So I think we'll revisit it somewhere around the 20th.
There you go.
I kind of gave the answer where that was gonna go, so.
That makes sense? And I think in the meantime, we could read the guidance from the courts and look at, you know, maybe Amy and Sarah, as you kind of, and Felicia, with some of the higher traffic areas, just kind of give us a feel. Kurt, do you think you'll open up kind of that 3 day a week by then?
That's our goal.
Yeah.
Probably maybe by the, second week of July.
Yeah, and I think if you do that, it might be good to kind of keep other staff members aware of what you saw and what you learned, to kind of, we watch that go. You know, I want to be cautious and.
Yeah, and so do we, and that's why we're watching the numbers in the county and, because we don't wanna open and then have to close again. But
Right.
We might have to do that.
Recommend staying appointment only at this time. She's unmuted now, and I'll let her speak, but she had sent a chat message about that. Christie, Toby Williams?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So,
Thank you. I didn't want to interrupt. So public health recommendation is continuing operations via appointment only based off of the data that's in front of us. The number of positive cases, the number of deaths in our county, and the known from our last community health needs assessment, the number of at-risk populations that are high within our county. So putting all of that together, following the CDC guidance on workplaces during COVID-19 and whether considering opening that you follow that. Each department may be a little different, and I think that's okay. And operating uniquely to each department, but at this point, we're open at public health, but we do by appointment only. And we do, as you were saying, screening questions when folks call in prior to them coming to our department. And we have masks to offer individuals, and our staff wear masks.
Okay.
Christie, do you make your visitors require masks, your appointments?
Yes, if they're symptomatic, we do. Our staff all wear them.
So if they're not, when you say asymptomatic, you mean that they're not showing symptoms, but they're saying that they're healthy, they don't need to wear a mask? Is that what you're saying? The people that come for their appointments?
Yes, we do ask people to wear masks, but if there are conditions where somebody has shared, I cannot, it's hard for me to breathe, I have COPD, but typically our more vulnerable populations, such as for our diabetes education, we're doing all of that in virtual care format. But we do have some folks that come in that need additional hands-on education with their devices.
Okay.
And I'd say about 50% of our customers have worn masks. I just don't know how we can require it if we're not gonna sell them to them or give them to them or,
No,
we just don't have it.
it's no different than I think about, you go to Menards, you're not gonna get business if you don't have that. So I feel like I'm putting my teams at risk, knowing that if we're gonna eventually open
Well,
up,
one of the
those
questions
are-
I had is if we could provide masks at the door and then, have a drop off for when you leave, you drop in the box and we could launder them all or do something like that, in our buildings. It'd be kind of a pain, but, you kind of have to decide, is it important or is it not important? And, we're kind of the ones through public health giving the guidelines, so we probably should follow our own guidelines just
Well, I know,
closely
but I'm
as
thinking more,
possible.
if you're behind the window versus somebody that's in front of
Right.
the window.
Yeah.
And, just the different, spacing needs and whatnot.
The enforcement's the issue. We had that when we first opened the campgrounds, and that was a state recommendation to mask required, anybody going in the bathrooms. Well, unless you have somebody there
Yeah.
enforcing it.
Sure, just not gonna
And
do
like
it.
Menards, I've noticed them having the, almost pulling people out that, that don't wanna wear a mask in there, and it, I don't know, I don't understand the public sometimes, but, yeah, we end up taking that off because probably 70–80% were wearing masks, but some just says, I'm not gonna wear a mask, but I'm still gonna use the bathroom. Well, I'm not gonna have staff going in there and pulling them out of the bathroom, just let them do it. So we no longer have that requirement.
Okay. All right, so does that seem like a logical step forward? We'll kind of continue as is, the appointment process, continue to ask the screening questions, and then we'll revisit this kind of mid-July.
I'd like to know by mid-July before we have that meeting if the numbers have gone down. If we have 3 weeks of numbers continuing to go down versus what we just
Yeah.
saw,
Well, you-
that helps us identify that we would be
Or
ready.
you get Christie's.
Yeah, Christie send those
Yeah,
things,
okay,
yeah,
so
that's
you
what I'm
see
saying,
her-
so I'm just saying that as far as why our reasoning would be behind some of those things.
Yep. Okay,
I would also recommend, I sent a link, in your board packet, Nancy sent, I'm trying to find it was in my email, and it is a link to, I think it's, this is what Burdette had provided me, IFAC. They have put a map together, the map is very nice, so I would encourage you to go in and look at that, you can actually link on it through the PDF.
And I
It
did,
shows you,
sorry,
go
Kristen.
ahead.
I did link on that map, I did link to the map, and as of Friday, what they're showing is 51 counties have opened up to the public. 41 counties are still by appointment only, and 7 are completely closed to the public.
completely closed in 7?
Completely closed to the public, 7. But of those 7, there was an indication, I believe, that 4 were gonna be opening at least by appointment, sometime soon.
And I think that's kind of consistent with the shutdown, because there were a number of counties that really didn't have significant COVID outbreaks and issues. We were one of the chosen few, I guess, to have more cases, and I think it's a road back is probably more conservative is a fine way to go. Okay,
So am I hearing that I should assume we should do a virtual meeting again then?
I would do that.
That's what you're hearing.
Because I don't know, I mean, it doesn't sound to me like appointment process is gonna work for you here. Because you have to be completely open to the public, so I don't know how you do that. Yeah, okay.
Do you have any facilities that you could possibly do that where we could contain or limit the people coming in and out for your meeting? I don't know, Dunkin' room?
The Dunkin' room only holds about
I don't think it's.
18.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
not,
I just,
Smaller than this.
okay, well, and I'm just saying,
Yeah.
do we have something available to us that we could?
yeah,
easily
this
accommodate that?
has been a challenge to everybody, like even the Scott County, they said, when they do the requirements in their big meeting room right at the bottom, they said, yeah, we could easily gate people into that, so that would work. But then we can only accommodate like 25 people, and some of these events, like Eric said, you could get 40 people at them, so how do you do that and then manage that?
Environmental Learning Center, we would have the classrooms that have a separate entrance into that, they have restrooms, but they would not have any entrance into the rest of our exhibit area or staff area.
So you could lock that off, so that might be, maybe that'd be something to try for your meetings, Eric.
Well, I thought I didn't wanna ask, his building, but because it would be easier with that entrance and their parking lot even, I could pull a staff person for the one day a month to help monitor, to make sure if there's a late straggler to get them in the door. Their parking lot is fairly close, where here you don't know where people would be parked to summons them.
Because I don't want to put some of our P and Z process, because those folks, those can be lengthy processes already and can be a bit of a challenge for folks to have to go through it, and I don't want to make it any slower.
I'll hold my P and Z and board adjustment, because I also don't wanna pressure them into an in-person public meeting. I have a few that are a little older and I don't know their health conditions, so maybe we'll kind of play it by ear, because I don't wanna force them into a room with the public if they're not ready. These are volunteer.
Do the way we're doing it
Yeah,
here, where they could have the go-to option or the in-person option.
Yeah.
Some of them they just weren't comfortable with the platform, they made it through with some hiccups, but I would anticipate still doing both, I think, just because some of the public may not want to come either, but it's their right to petition.
Would they have access to a phone?
Yeah,
in-
we have phone
in-
jacks in our room.
Okay.
I have no idea what you have in your conference room,
Well,
other
not
than, what we put in for
Except those
internet.
guys have done that.
Okay.
But our room is fairly large.
Yeah.
People could do their social distancing probably still with a group of 30 people in there.
Yeah,
There'd
you
still
could.
be plenty of space in between everybody.
Yeah, that's a good idea. If you could make that work, that'd be great. Because I forgot you have that hallway where you can close that off, and you've got restrooms in the room right there. You could isolate those folks. Keep them out of the rest of the building. Okay. All right, well, thank you everyone for your attendance today and your feedback. We appreciate it.
I got one more thing
Okay.
before. So, Bill, and this is probably for you, Amy. If we were to take long-term, requests on something like this still with us being in lockdown, if we don't see these things in the future, would there ever be a thought process of maybe having some sort of interactive, maybe viewing of somebody that can come in through, or even like a walk-up window that we could set up maybe outside of your office to, almost like you're going to a bank, to be able to never really be in touch with the public, because I'm concerned about how you're accessing the staff and how your staff is still walking them in and out.
Right.
But if I were to actually have like a window, like you have like a First National Bank or community bank, whatever it may be, and if we could either have an interactive, or it could be something where they just walk up, and you don't, in a sense, you could have somebody on the window there from staff always, taking in tickets. The ones that you're having communications issues, you can still see them, but you never touch them.
I mean, we're virtually doing that from the drop
I-
box
I-
as far
I
as
understand,
that,
but-
yeah, to be able to.
But from a long-term
Kind of
standpoint.
like a jail visitation.
Correct, but I mean, in a sense, you're, okay,
Got
here,
phone
you
there
open
we
up the
talk.
window, here you send me
Yeah,
the
you
check,
can
here's your
have a drawer or
receipt.
something.
And you're accessing, I mean, it would be a little bit of construction of some sort that we could do outside of that window. And if it works, maybe we could eventually say, hey, we could do that for the recorders as well too, maybe on some sort of out there behind
Well,
the
they
counter.
do business, they have a window right up by the back door that they've done business through, kind of like that.
I don't know, I'm just thinking,
We don't.
I'd like to see if that's something that you guys would be interested. I'm thinking a little outside the box here for you guys, but if it comes back, hey, July, we still have this problem. Is that something that we could look at, you guys could discuss as a team? And it could be, some of the banks I know that you do are interactive that I've seen, that they're just a lady that comes up on a screen, and they still have access, and they're in their office, and you don't see nobody. But you still see them and they see you. So you could do that, or you could have an actual window that you can see them physically, if you're close to the street. So
That's a building,
We have a stairway
yeah, that would have to be inside the
between
stairway.
this wall and their office, there's a stairway. that
I,
goes down. But
okay,
otherwise,
I don't know, I'm just thinking if it's something to think about and it's something that you
used to
can.
have
We do the
the,
little lobby by the fireplace, get rid of the fireplace.
yeah, one of those window panels there.
Put a
If
little
you could
tube.
build something
You could, I mean, you
like
could,
that.
yeah, a little tube, something rolls up.
All right,
I
that's a
mean,
notion.
I don't know, I just wanted you to talk about, it's something to think about. I think it's something that in my mind, I'm here brainstorming about the things that you just talked about, how you're exposing yourself, opening up the doors, bringing those things back, tracing, things like that. Here, we eliminate a lot of those things, but yet still attend to the public.
Yeah.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Okay, now we'll move on to the next item, item number 7, discussion of possible action to approve the minutes of the June 15, 2020 regular meeting.
So moved.
Motion by Nathan, second by Doug. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Correspondence, Santos, do you have anything?
We had a meeting on Friday of last week with some of the levy stakeholders in regards to just information of the potential economic development administration funding and some exciting work that may be able to be helping with work on the levy, helping with the Corps involved and some of the teams here in the city and the county that are working on that. So hopefully there's some more information to come. Jeff was at that meeting as well too, so I'll kind of just share that those were some exciting good parts that we're looking at, potentially looking for some funding as well on that. And that's all I had on correspondence.
Okay. Nathan?
On June the 16th, last Tuesday, we had the Veterans Affairs Commission meeting. Not a lot to cover, it's pretty straightforward. Did I tell you wrong?
We're on correspondence.
We're on correspondence. Well, you know what? I want to do things backwards, apparently. I did not have any correspondence.
Okay, there you go.
But I give you a little teaser for my committee report. How about
There you
that?
go. Thank you, Nathan.
Leslie stopped you in your tracks right there.
All I had for correspondence.
Got one of those like canes that yank people.
I had a call from a gentleman down on Stewart Road, concerned about cost-effective trash pickup. I did reach out to Eric. I do have to get back to him because I'm trying to get information on his options for getting rid of trees and such. and brush. So that's it for me, and I did attend the levy stakeholder, we had a meeting with this levy stakeholder group. Scott?
All I had was a call regarding from a resident in the county regarding a culvert in his actual driveway, and wanting to know the procedure that he could possibly do in regard to maybe extending that to get that slope better in regard to mowing it and so on and so forth. And I've had a conversation with Keith that what needs to happen there for the landowner to do this on their own with the proper permitting, and I will forward that. That's all I had.
Doug?
Correspondence, Leslie, I told you I had none, I lied. See, and Eric, I remembered that I did get a call at Cammer Trailer Court about septic overflowing there again, and I talked to Eric about that. Are we doing committee reports too now?
Now we're doing committee reports, Doug, you can go.
Okay. June 17th at noon was Wilton Development. That was supposed to be a virtual meeting. I went in person. June 18th was Fair Board. We met at 5:30. Got all the gates set up for the horse races and the show ring for the sheep and goat show. And June 20th was the horse races and the shows. And it was pretty good program.
Great. Scott?
On Monday the 15th, I had the Conservation Board, and they are working forward on pouring the footings and the walls on cabins down there. And then Wednesday the 17th, Riverbend Transit. As you can imagine, that is a slow-moving process with ridership there, and there are budget and financial issues, as anyone would understand with that, but things are moving forward slowly, and we'll see how that shakes out as well. That's all I had.
Okay. On the 15th, I had the Eastern Iowa Mental Health Region Board. And on the 17th, I had two meetings, actually. One was a fiscal agent training, which was just a ball of fun. And then the CEO of the Mississippi Valley Workforce Agent Area, Workforce Area, I guess they call it, board meeting as well. And that's all I had. Nathan?
You want to hear about my committee report?
Sure.
Hey, on June the 16th, we had the Veterans Affairs Commission.
Was it fairly?
It was fairly straightforward, yeah.
Okay.
And also, no correspondence.
Santos, complex yourself.
I just had a email from David Pop from the Solid Waste Commission in regards to moving the meeting because the city is not allowing meetings, but I replied to him and the other city officials that were on that we should have a Zoom meeting of some sort. A little concerning to me that he's delayed this meeting multiple times yet. I shared that with Jeff as well too, so.
Very
That's all I
good.
had.
Okay. On to item number 10, items with the administration office. Number 10A is discussion possible action to approve resolution 06-22-2001 approving an amended 2080 agreement for the Eastern Iowa Mental Health and Disability Services Region. So last week when we talked about this, the concern was on the child health advocates or voting members now on the board. I had a discussion with Lori Elam. She understands our concern, and those names have been removed as potential board members for the governing board. And we also talked about a vetting process, and I think she now understands that maybe we need to look at the employers of people we put on a board that have voting rights and not put them in the position of potential conflicts of interest. And that's how we will be moving forward. We don't have new names put. She was out recruiting members, so I think that was a good catch and process. We did get a notification, I think, that our plan was approved by the state for the mental health region, so we're moving forward there. This 2080, I know there are some things we'd like to see changed, and we have those documented at the board level, and we'll put that as our annual process to do this. We haven't done this since, 14 or 15? And we had that discussion last week, everybody thought that was a good idea. We've got like 3 or 4 of the counties are already through the approval process. So I think rather than go back and go, because all 5 counties have to approve it. If I just ask, we get this approved, and we'll keep those noted, our issues and exceptions on the 28E, and we'll bring that back in the next round of approvals, probably for next year, when we do that all board member meeting again. Kind of that's one of the things we wanted to talk about, is have just a standing topic of a discussion for that meeting. Here's the 28E issues we see, here's what the potential resolutions are, and have that dialogue at an all board level so that we can get our issues vetted and aired, and then we'll run it through the process. So, any other questions, comments, concerns? The Eastern Iowa Mental Health, I mean, things are coming back to normal, so they're still doing a lot of tele stuff, but they're starting to open up in person more and more, and we're starting to see the results of that. And from a budget standpoint, actually, and that we're doing okay. The cuts implemented are having effect, and so that if you looked at 2 months ago, the report, the budget balance wasn't looking as good as it is today. So I don't know if that's decreased activity or just, quite frankly, Muscatine County has really shored up our line items, and we're doing a good job, so.
Good.
So if I would like you to consider a motion to run this forward and approve this 28E to get moving the process forward.
Make that motion to approve.
Santos will make a motion.
Second.
Doug will second. This would have to be a roll call vote.
If I could just say real
Yeah.
quick, Jeff, I appreciate you getting those things clarified with the region. I appreciate Lori Elam recognizing the impropriety, if not illegality, maybe of the appointments that were suggested. There still are some concerns I have within the 2080. We're kind of at the deadline. We have to have this thing approved in 9 days, so there's not much that we can do to iron those out. So I think your suggestion of kind of revisiting those minor issues at the annual meeting is a good idea. I'm still very concerned about whether unanimity is required to admit a new region or a new county to the region, but you take what you can get, I suppose. So with those things observed, I will certainly vote to approve.
Yeah, anybody else, any other concerns or issues? Okay, so then we'll go ahead and roll call vote this. So Santos?
Aye.
Doug?
Aye.
Scott? Aye. Nathan?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Okay, yeah, I think that we did an update on the facilitated session. So Jeff Schott, who had done it before, they were trying to reach out, but apparently he has retired, and they're gonna try to entice him out for one day instead of taking a facilitator and getting him up. I think that'll be a really good event, because I'm not sure all the governing board members are aware of some of the documents published in the last few years that would indicate maybe we should have been doing this 3 and 4 years ago. We should have been having these sessions and renewing. So the Baker Tilly report, which was the original company that helped put this all together, is kind of old news. There's been a lot of changes in legislation and how regions have operated, kind of what we've learned. And so I hope to see that happen here before fall. Okay, next on the agenda is action to accept the June 2020 payroll claims.
Move to approve.
I have a motion by Scott.
Second.
Second by Nathan. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Anything else, Nancy, you had?
Just a reminder that I'll be on vacation for a couple weeks in July.
Okay.
I did want to bring up also, we did have that levy stakeholders update. There is a potential of having a joint meeting with the city, potentially coming up with these next couple of weeks. I know that at that time we had a discussion with Greg Jenkins, and he was going to schedule something looking at the city council's schedule. And I believe we did have a date in early July.
July,
That
yeah.
we had that discussion in the evening that we wanted to set up.
Good, yeah, so, July.
Wednesday-
16th?
Wednesday or Thursday.
Jeez.
But I think we'll have that information by next week, but I know we
Yeah,
talked about doing
we
it.
put we tried to do, you know,
They're
as
gonna
everybody
communicate
remembers,
with
we had
Greg.
a joint meeting scheduled in person, and then with COVID, it all got delayed. We're at a point, you know, bottom line is that there's a potential for some EDA grant money to do some improvements down there. There's a $7 million in match funds that we gotta figure out. And so the county and the city are gonna have to play a huge role in this. And we need to have these people need to get up to speed quickly. This has been a 7-year process. And this is money that looks like highly likely EDA is really interested in it, so we may be able to get this done. But we have to get the decision makers at the table. We can't wait. So, Santos' suggestion, Greg, hey, let's just get a Zoom meeting, a go-to meeting. We can all get, public can still listen in and get everybody up to speed. So we're gonna do that and try to present the studies, kind of where we are, what's been done, what the status of everything is, so that everybody can kind of get a good, fresh look at this.
And we'll confirm those dates, Nancy, once we know that.
And then Greg will be actually hosting the meeting, setting it up. Is
Correct,
that- okay.
he's, at this time, he's the one trying to set the dates up.
Or will they be doing minutes?
I'm not, I think, yeah, do they use GoTo at the city as well, or do they use Zoom?
I don't know, I think they use GoTo. I think they use
I
GoTo.
I think they are using GoTo now.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so thanks for reminding me.
I just wanted to
Santos.
communicate
Yeah.
that, I forgot about that
Yeah.
piece, that we still don't know the dates because they're trying to verify with.
It'll be early
council.
July, because
But-
basically, we have to have a timeline, and we got documents to get to EDA in July. And the funding source that they're chasing here, the commitment, it's an October 1 day,
So we're
so.
working with Bi-State, and Denise is kind of
Denise Boulat.
spearheading a lot of this with us, so. Just some information that hopefully once we know that, we'll get the team and we'll have some go-to meeting with power slides and everything, PowerPoint slides that they'll have and that information. I just wanted to get that out before I forgot.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is receive information from county employees. Any county employees have anything to share this morning? Kurt?
Give an update on the cabins, Scott kind of mentioned that, it's exciting, our cabins are moving forward, water's going down, and Deep Lakes. They did, when they dug the hole for the first 2 cabins, they did hit a little bit of water, but wasn't anything major, so, it continues to go down, but we do have walls and footing poured on 2 of the cabins, the other 2 cabins are set in walls right now, the footings are poured. Weather holds out this week somewhat, they should be able to get those walls poured. I'm looking at meeting with representatives from Design Homes where we're getting the cabins from this week to have them look at to see if we can get the cabins set once the foundation contractor is all completed. And then we can start working on those and get utilities put in before we start getting the actual road put in. Because that's gonna take a while to get the road in, but I think we kind of made black sand road down there. We use that black sand, and courtesy of Brian Hahn, for appreciative, they donated the sand for that. But concrete trucks have had no problem getting in, so I think the semis and the crane coming in to set the homes won't have a problem. So hopefully maybe within the next month and a half, we'll have cabins set, and then start completing all the other utility work and road work and all that. If everything goes well, maybe by this fall, we could have those opening up, so that's kind of exciting.
Now, those cabins, are you capping the basement, the slab under there? Is that gonna be open under that crawl space, just like
It's a
stone?
crawl space, and it has visqueen or plastic,
And
then
rock,
like 6
basically.
inches of rock on that, yeah.
And then those all have septic systems?
We'll have one large system for all 4 cabins, and it's a special type of system, and thanks to Eric for setting that up, and so, yeah, the well has been dug, that well is just.
Yeah, I think I saw I was down this weekend, and since I knew you were working on them, I went down, walked, and checked out the footings, and it looks like it'll be a really nice location.
Yeah, they're really scenic views once those are in.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I'd encourage everybody to go down and walk through there and look. Well, don't violate the construction signs. Any other county employees have anything to share? Okay, seeing no one, item number 12 is receive comments from the public. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to address the board this morning? Bill?
We have one caller,
Going on?
and unless they speak up, I can't.
So the mics are unmuted. There is one, we show one caller in on here from the public. If there's something you'd like to share with the board, please state your name and address and your issue. Otherwise, we will move to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, so we don't hear anything from the public, so meeting is adjourned.